Welcome to Turning Hard Times to Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm speaking to you from the borough of Queens in New York City. It is the 17th day of January, 2023, and sadly, this is the last day this show will air on the Voice of America Business Channel. However, this show is not going to disappear. You can continue to listen to a commercial-free version of Turning Hard Times to Good Times every Wednesday by going to the podcast page at jtaylormedia.com or at my YouTube channel at 3 o'clock p.m. every Wednesday, starting the 25th of January. That's 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Unless you are notified otherwise, we expect to have a show every Wednesday starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As this year gets underway, I'm very bullish on gold and silver mining shares as well as commodities and producers of those commodities. The creation of money lent out at zero interest rates has resulted in massive misallocation of capital into what I call dream companies with no earnings. For an indefinite period of time into the future, these companies, many of them, don't have any prospects of earning any money, but they have a dream. Now, with interest rates starting to reflect more accurately the true cost of capital, I believe investors will continue to move towards companies that produce life-sustaining goods and services and have strong earnings and balance sheets, and away from those fantasy, what I call dream companies or fantasy stocks. We have seen the start of this with commodities among the only really profitable sector in 2022, while gold served its purpose as a better wealth preserver than the U.S. Treasuries and equities. There are a number of companies I follow in my newsletter, but some of my favorites are I-80 Gold, Lion One Metals, Red Pine Exploration, El Oro Resources, Irving Resources, Labrador Gold, Newfound Gold, Puma Exploration, and Western Alaska. Those are truly companies that I think are on to some major discoveries that you're going to want to know about, and I think investors in those firms have a chance to make a lot of money in 2023. To encourage you to try my newsletter, and I haven't really pushed my newsletter that much in this show in the past, but to encourage you to try my newsletter, Jay Taylor's Gold, Energy, and Tech Stocks, we are offering a 2-month trial for just $29, and you will receive weekly letters that report important information for the stocks that we cover in the letter. That is on a weekly basis, and then there is also a monthly letter that comes at the end of the month that summarizes where the markets are, and the specific stocks provides an update and a summary of where those companies are at the end of the month. To sign up, send us your email along with a credit card or check. Taylor Hard Money Advisors, 6003 72nd Street, Maspeth, New York, 11378. And don't forget to send that along with an email. The email, of course, is essential because we deliver this product by email. Or if you'd like, you can call our office here in New York City to sign up directly. That number is 718-457-1426, 718-457-1426. Call during normal work hours. Regarding today's show, I do want to thank Timberline Resources for sponsoring the show today. I expect Timberline and several other personal favorites of mine, as I just noted, to become sponsors as we go forward starting on the 25th of January. I've titled today's show, Searching for Hope in a World Gone Mad. I have 2 guests this week on my show. They are one of this show's most favorite guests, Michael Oliver, and the second is the Reverend Larry Bean. Michael is not only one of the best technical analysts I have ever encountered, but he is also the author of a book titled The New Libertarianism, Anarcho-Capitalism. And Reverend Bean is not only a strong Lutheran theologian, but also understands the virtues of a capitalist economic system tempered by an obedience to the Golden Rule. Michael Oliver provides a secular view as a libertarian and an Ayn Rand objectivist thinker. Ayn Rand observed tyranny in Russia during the bloody USSR communist regime. She was a brilliant thinker and has a great number of insights into how free societies function better than those under dictatorships. Michael and I are in agreement that America is starting to move very rapidly towards a cultural Marxist dictatorship where the so-called progressive wing of the Democrat Party is using propaganda to cause Americans to hate each other and turn against the U.S. Constitution that was designed to protect Americans against government tyranny. Unfortunately, it seems the Biden administration and most members of the Democrat Party are all in agreement with cultural Marxism, which destroys family and teaches mothers and fathers that their offspring belongs to the state, as does everything else that we think as our own private property. If you think that kind of dictatorship is impossible in America, you need to pay attention to what the World Economic Forum is planning for you. The founder of that one world government format, Klaus Schwab, envisions a time in the near future when you and I will own nothing and we will be happy. Climate change hysteria, as well as COVID-19 hysteria, are being used to condition us all to submit to the state. And if you don't take the World Economic Forum seriously, you should, because the Biden administration and most all Western governments now, with the possible exception of Hungary, are bowing at the knees of Klaus Schwab in passing policies that are aimed at forming a one world government with national sovereignty being given up in charge of a central worldwide authority. If you wonder why the Biden administration is fostering the immigration of millions of illegal immigrants into the United States, it is not only because they wish to gain total political power, but they also do not believe in the sovereignty of the United States government and our Constitution, which compels the President to execute the laws of our country, among which are the denial of illegal entrance into the United States. But beyond that, the Biden administration also has put into effect various policies or at least has espoused various policies that are really aimed at destroying our country as we have known it. Let me just give you some examples of what they've been doing. These are local officials, not necessarily national officials, but far left activists. They're letting violent criminals out of jail to implement equity. Eliminating the Supreme Court is being endorsed, not actually then packing it so that its effect is eliminated. Eliminating the Electoral College system, eliminating 2 senators from each state, no matter a state's population. Eliminating the filibuster rules in the Senate, allowing non-citizens to vote, giving illegal aliens more benefits than American citizens are provided with, teaching kids critical race theory and denying our actual true history, using the CIA to censor free speech guaranteed under the Constitution, and threatening to take away the Second Amendment so citizens can more easily be moved where and when and wherever government chooses to incarcerate them. I fear the COVID-19 mandates were a precursor to a future more akin to the imprisonment of citizens like those that occurred in Australia and New Zealand during the COVID days. There are many more examples of destructive policies, but the end results of all of these policies are to destroy America as it has been given to us by our founding fathers. As one who has lived 76 years, these changes are difficult for me to swallow. The ruling elite, including those Donald Trump referred to as the swamp, which includes all the U.S. intelligence apparatus, the entire military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about, and most of all the major media, are increasingly using propaganda to lie and misinform the public about COVID, climate change, foreign wars, and the financial condition of America. We know now from the Twitter drops that the U.S. government was in fact censoring free speech using private corporations to front that action. Unfortunately, these kind of pathological policies are not only happening in America, but also in other countries in the West that we thought of as safe democratic places to live, countries like Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, for example. The kind of censorship and removal of property and the right to protect, as orchestrated by Canada's Trudeau, has been an absolute travesty, and along with the related propaganda and examples that were common in the Soviet dictatorship during the Cold War, they are really almost out of the same playbook. But then I guess I shouldn't be totally surprised. Way back in the 1950s, the John Birch Society was warning that America would one day become a communist dictatorship. And now we know that is exactly what the radical left is setting out to accomplish, not only in the United States, but throughout the entire Western world, by their demands to give away the safeguards of liberty built into the Constitution, and violent riots like those carried out by Antifa and Black Lives Matter in the summer of 2020, the left is not hiding their intentions of overthrowing the U.S. government. In fact, I believe they have largely achieved an overthrow already, given the massive sympathy that is within our government. So it's been an inside job. That's the way I view it. And I hope I'm wrong about that, but it sure seems to be. You might recall that when Senator Schumer warned Donald Trump not to mess with the CIA because they have 7 ways to Sunday to get back at you. I don't think that was an idle threat from Senator Schumer, and, they managed to get Donald Trump removed, that's for sure. I wish we could depend on free market objectivist ideology, but one very powerful follower of Ayn Rand, former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan, proved why you can't put your faith in objectivism or any other ideology. Talking about gold, which, when it backed the dollar, limited the amount of dollars that could be created, Alan Greenspan wrote the following, quote, "In the absence of the gold standard, there is no way to protect the savings from confiscation through inflation. There is no safe store of value. If there were, the government would have to make its holdings illegal, as was done in the case of gold. If everyone decided, for example, to convert all their bank deposits into silver or copper or any other good, and thereafter declined to accept checks as payment for goods, bank deposits would lose their purchasing power, and government-created bank credit would be worthless as a claim on goods. The financial policy of the welfare state requires that there be no way for owners of wealth to protect themselves. This is the shabby secret of the welfare statist tirades against gold. Deficit spending is simply a scheme for the hidden confiscation of wealth. Gold stands in the way of this insidious process. It stands as a protector of property rights. If one grasps this, one has no difficulty in understanding the statist antagonism towards the gold standard." End of quote. So, as it turns out, despite his understanding that debasing the dollar by printing massive amounts of money would destroy the American economy, that's exactly what Greenspan did. The Federal Reserve put was put in place by Alan Greenspan after the stock market crash of 1987, and the intention there was as soon as the stock market starts to really tank hard, the government would pump money into the system to allow money to flow back into the equity markets, and from there the economy would not suffer. Well, it's worked pretty well in many ways over quite a few years, but now we've come to the point where we've piled debt on top of debt, because remember, money that isn't backed by gold is created from debt, and so the debt keeps piling up, getting greater and greater now, so that the United States government itself could become insolvent. It has a debt to GDP of something like 130%. The only time it was higher was slightly for a short period of time during World War II. But getting back to Alan Greenspan, in 2001, Congressman Ron Paul had Alan Greenspan autograph a copy of Greenspan's 1966 article after Greenspan appeared before the House Banking Committee, of which Ron Paul was a member. Dr. Paul told me that as Greenspan autographed that newsletter, he asked Greenspan if he still believed what he wrote in 1966. And according to Dr. Paul, Greenspan reported back to him, he said, "Yes, I recently read it and I would not change a word." End of quote. In a conversation I had after that with Dr. Paul, I asked him how he thought Greenspan could reconcile his actions as a Federal Reserve chairman when he understood of the destruction his actions would lead to. Ron said that Greenspan said that he was the only one who thought that way, and hence would have no impact if he spoke out in favor of the gold standard. Of course, he was subsequently knighted by the Queen of England for doing such a great job for the global economy. So a morally challenged federal chairman understood his actions would lead to the demise of the United States through inflation, but rather than voice his intellectual concerns about our monetary system, or step aside and let someone else become an executioner of the American economy, he chose to accept the praise of kings and princes. Still, might there be some self-cleansing social mechanism or natural laws in place that could force a return to an honest monetary regime, that would force a disciplined monetary system? For example, as Alistair MacLeod has been talking often about how China, Russia, and the BRICS are putting into place a system to rival the dollar, that system, for example, is based on gold. Actually, China, Russia, and the BRICS are moving very quickly towards something to rival the dollar, actually to replace the petrodollar with the petro-yuan. Michael Oliver has always been one who has argued that laws of nature will ultimately prevail over markets that are malfunctioning due to government intervention. So I can't think of anyone better to argue that point than Michael Oliver, who will be with me right after the break that is coming up in just a moment. The Reverend Larry Bean, a Lutheran Missouri Synod theologian, and one who is sympathetic to free market capitalism, will join me to provide his insights into the direction the West is heading and to help us understand how we can live joyful, peaceful, purposeful lives no matter what darkness we may face in the years to come. He will be with me in the final segment of today's show. The question is, if man cannot live by bread alone, what else is there?